For Subaru, he knew luck had nothing to do with it. If it did, then Subaru felt he wouldn't have died multiple times to get to this point. To him, he just wasn't the type to believe in fortune anymore.
Chat, like, it ain't just
Amelia.
That's one thing I do like about ReZero, how it's just not like, oh, shoot him up, bang, bang, you know, people just powering up and hitting each other in the mouth. What's good, YouTube, man? Shaun back with another reaction, and today we have ReZero Season 3, Episode 4 cut content reaction. Like I said, we're gonna keep knocking these out until I catch up to the episodes, which is, I can't remember what episode I'm on, like just episode reaction wise, but once we catch up, I'm gonna just start dropping it, you know what I'm saying, back to back and get caught all the way up. But with that being said, if you're new here, my name is Shaun. Like I said, welcome to the Don crew, bro. Welcome here, welcome if you're new. Hey, let's get into this. You know what I'm saying? Today's video is titled Garfield's True Despair and Subaru's Preparations for War. So, hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, my fault to lighten a little you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't like that. It's like, do the dash on. I take Percocets when I feel alone. Come on. I might do it like that. Fuck. Go ahead, put your digits in. Give her back, call it karma. Spend on designer. Bro, y'all better love me, bro. I got these lights banging right now,
For right now, Amelia and Felt have been captured, Priscilla and Otto are nowhere to be found, Garfield has to help his mother find his siblings, then Subaru and the others need to free the city from
I'm gonna make sure I'm dropping these videos,
They're all
get more consistent with it, y'all.
Simultaneously, and
y'all want more, smash the like button, let me know.
Storylines of the side characters. So, while Season 4 does switch things up with the way the story is presented, the way it bounces around actually kinda works. It makes sure we're relatively updated with the status of everyone, all while maintaining
I like how he puts the
focus
manga panels in there, bro. It's so tough.
This does come at the cost of some additional depth though, so where we should have gotten more info on Capella, Al, and some others, we instead kept our focus on the main cast. It leaves quite a bit to cover in just one episode
This
of
is
cut
so
content.
tough, bro.
So, rather than do one long half-hour video, this one will be split into parts. First, the extended meeting and Garfield's conflict, then after that, the operation and how it really went down. Both have some pretty interesting details you're probably going to want to know about. But first, have you ever wanted to form your own dream team of...
Hey, chat, look. It's funny cause, hey, I know he be getting his bread. Do your thing, bro. Shout out to AniNews, by the way. This AniNews video.
Chapters 3 and 4 from Volume 17 of the
I always put it in the title anyways.
With Capella's name being revealed as the culprit behind everything, Subaru was both surprised and unsurprised.
It's low-key a refresher for me too.
Capella was an archbishop he's never heard of before, and unsurprised.
Oh yeah, the dragon bit.
Was a given at this point.
Hey, shorty is sick as fuck.
Golden rule these deranged archbishops always followed. It was the fact they always introduced themselves before doing anything. It was as if they all had this desire to stand in the spotlight. Now, there were a few logistical questions Subaru wanted answered, like why was it that a business was being used as a disaster response headquarters? Based on what he knew about companies in general, it wasn't normal for them to turn their place of business into a shelter like this. Well, as it turns out, the main reason is because the building was owned by Kiritaka. The person Subaru didn't really think too fondly of was actually a lot more considerate than he may have thought. Reason being that, as the leading member of the city's Council of 10, it only made sense to look out for the people he was responsible for. He was actively assisting with the evacuation himself, all while taking time to properly dispatch those who could assist even further. So, if even Krush and Wilhelm are vouching for his character, then Subaru knew Kiritaka might not be as bad as he thought. In fact, if not for Kiritaka and his quick decision to turn his business into a makeshift field hospital, there was a good chance Felix wouldn't have been able to save Subaru's leg at all.
Stomach up, bro. I got a weak stomach, I ain't gonna lie.
That Subaru actually kind of owed him one. Al had even gone so far as to refer to this as lucky, but for Subaru, he knew luck had nothing to do with it. If it did, then Subaru felt he wouldn't have died multiple times to get to this point. To him, he just wasn't the type to believe in fortune anymore. He had stopped doing so ever since the day he was isekai'd here.
It's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in ReZero though. That's just not shown. Well, it's hard to be shown in a 20-minute episode, right?
Herself, you'd think Al would be more worried about her safety, but in actuality he wasn't too concerned at all. Yes, he was a bit scared,
liked that,
but
though.
that was mostly for himself since Priscilla was gonna punish him for sure. There was no way she wouldn't, considering his lack of presence during such a crucial time like this. Julius
Priscilla
and
down
Ricardo
there.
had escorted
Bae?
Felix
Question
there,
mark?
then
Let me know,
immediately
chat.
left to go check
Let me
up
know
on other
Priscilla there or
shelters.
not.
Their plan was
I
to
know
contact
Amelia come
Felix
first,
should
but
they
like, you
find
know what I
anyone
mean,
who
you know what
needed
I'm
his
saying?
help. Also, they could save at least one more
Or am I
person.
too old for that?
The whole thing made perfect sense to
How old are
Subaru,
they?
except for the part about contacting Felix.
Nah, she was whipping the shit out them
Being
dogs,
that
bro.
in a world
Is
where the
it that's
total
this
count of cell
episode,
phones
bro?
was 1, the conversation mirror media was quite the surprise for Subaru. I mean, with the way Felix pulled it out as if it was the most common thing to exist, that even went to catch me off guard. As it turns out though, the mirror was actually a spoil of war from last year's battle against Betelgeuse. It was something Anastasia had been keeping ever since. Its full capabilities allowed it to connect to 3 other mirrors just like it, so all in all it was quite the useful tool for communication. Now, Otto's whereabouts wasn't too much of a concern for Subaru since when it came to staying alive, he was second to none. When all was said and done, Subaru truly believed he was the last person to slip up in a situation like this. It wasn't something he'd willingly admit out loud, but that was the glowing opinion Subaru had of him.
But you gotta like really like have to pause this at moments to learn how to like digest everything he's saying, because he do be kind of like, I'm just trying to listen and keep up. Hold on, let's lock in. Because he's talking about Otto right now.
Its full capabilities allowed it to connect to 3 other mirrors just like it, so
I'm not really used to react to people talk, so it's a new experience, you know. I'm still trying to learn how I feel, because like I'm used to like, you know, I'm sure that makes sense, right?
It was quite the useful tool for communication. Now, Otto's whereabouts wasn't too much of a concern for Subaru since
Otto
when
being
it
his
came
own
to
shit,
staying
I ain't gonna lie.
alive, he was second to none.
Facts,
When
okay.
all was said and done,
Okay, you
Subaru
talk about
truly
the
believed
communication
he was
device.
the last
Alright,
person to
we
slip
on
up
point.
in
We
a
on
situation
point.
like
I just have
this.
to make sure,
It
chat.
wasn't something he'd willingly admit out loud, but that was the glowing opinion Subaru had of him.
My
This
boy
is
Otto
actually
really like
pretty
that for
similar
real.
to the feelings
Okay.
Al has towards Priscilla, since just like Subaru with
Facts.
regards to Otto, Al trusted she could take care of herself too.
Hey,
It
I
just
told you
wasn't
she like
something
that,
he was
bro.
very open to admitting.
She ain't sweet.
Now, when it came to the others in the Amelia camp, Subaru believed Garfield was probably fine too, and Patrash was sharp enough to take care of herself. She was currently safe at an inn settled up alongside Frufu. The one party whose absence was a bit worrying though was Felt and her missing knight Reinhard. The last anyone had seen from either of them was Felt running after the person who ruined their mornings. It was a thought that caused Wilhelm to tense up a bit. Obviously, if Reinhardt was with her though, then her safety wasn't really anything to worry about.
Nah, Reinhardt.
So after every absentee
I love
was
that
thought
dude,
about
his
and
character,
accounted
bro.
for, the only wildcards were Priscilla and the songstress. There was no telling where the 2 of them could have run off together. Getting back to the main problem at hand, the archbishops were essentially holding 100,000 people hostage. As one of the 5 largest cities in Lagunica, it made evacuating everyone almost impossible. Sure, they could technically do it by walking right out the main gate, but with an enemy-controlled control tower right next to it, being discreet just wasn't feasible. It was a dire situation Subaru was surprisingly calm about since
this shit do be strategical though, chat. Like, it ain't just
Amelia.
That's one thing I do like about ReZero, how it's just not like, oh, shoot him up, bang, bang, you know, people just powering up and hitting each other in the mouth. Like, you know, that's cool every now and then, but now, like, ReZero really got, like, strategy and planning, and, like, I like it, bro. Especially the people they be going against. It's like, bro, compared to themselves.
Losing his cool wouldn't save anyone.
And they getting stronger,
his last outburst already caused Amelia to get abducted, so that was a mistake he was desperately trying to avoid again. It was an admirable notion that really resonated with Wilhelm. For some personal reason or the other, he was very invested in helping Subaru and Amelia. So while Wilhelm's support came as quite the comfort for Subaru, for Al, who was watching the whole interaction go down, he seemed interested for a completely different reason.
Yeah,
he didn't say a word the entire time it was happening, but the way he stared made it seem like he wanted to say something. It was enough to get Subaru to ask what it was. Al didn't have any reason in particular, but he did say how he was thinking Subaru was pretty twisted. It was a vague response that came with all sorts of implications. Subaru couldn't figure out what those were right now, but the off-putting nature of it made Subaru more wary of Al. This brings us now to the discussion about Capella, where quite a bit more was given for her backstory. Not the Capella we know as the Archbishop though, but instead the Capella who Lust stole her name from. So, aside from succumbing to illness at a very young age, it turns out her death wasn't mourned by anyone. Where normally a state funeral would be held and a formal ceremony put on, neither were done since the people had no desire to.
Damn.
The excuse was that the times were too dire, but in actuality it was simply because no one liked her.
Damn.
So the processions, which were hers by right, were
they put on a facade
due to the cruel,
too.
sadistic nature that she was known for. Apparently, wherever she went, an unfathomable darkness always seemed to follow.
Okay, the fucking lore behind these characters is insane. What the heck?
It was simply because no one liked her.
Hold on.
The processions, which were hers by right, were completely ignored due to the cruel, sadistic nature that she was known for. Apparently, wherever she went, an unfathomable darkness always seemed to follow. It's for this reason her death was even kept secret for a while, and that to Wilhelm will forever be one of the kingdom's greatest indignities. It clearly wasn't something he was comfortable talking about. At least now everyone knew Lust couldn't be the old Capella, so to Wilhelm it was likely she was just trying to harass those who did know her. Perhaps to invite suspicion or simply lay mistrust, but either way, it was a disrespectful act that clearly intended to disparage the royal family. Something Krusch and Wilhelm weren't very willing to just accept. The one who was affected by it the most, though, was actually Felix, who was now very visibly angry. It was rather rare for anyone to see him like this, but the expression Felix made now was one of pure, genuine anger. As a royal guard whose sole purpose was to protect the royal family, such disrespect was desecration of the highest order. That was the apparent reason
of the highest order.
On the surface, but there was something else too clearly bothering him. Something that didn't have anything to do with fealty or the kingdom. Now, there wasn't any point
so he got a connection.
The witch cult's intentions,
he had a connection with
was likely just a waste of time.
Forgot the name of the princess
the
already.
most important thing right now was figuring out how to navigate this.
What they call it?
They knew what they wanted and what was at risk, so all they needed to do now was figure out
he must have a connection to him.
The whole thing was actually so out of character.
They must have a connection with one another somehow.
To see them use hostages as a means
come on,
to
you can't be just showing the scene, bro. Hold on.
Trying to do so was likely just.
I know I'm rewatching it, but I gotta listen to what he's saying, bro. I gotta react to this.
Figuring out how
I'm sorry.
What they wanted and what was at risk, so all they needed to do now was figure out the best path forward. The whole thing was actually so out of character for the witch cult, since to see them use hostages as a means to an end, well, that was a level of logic and rationality Subaru just wasn't accustomed to for them.
They did.
As for what they wanted, the witch's bones were something Subaru couldn't initially fathom either. With Satella supposedly slumbering in a land far away to the east, the thought of her leaving her bones as a relic just didn't make sense to him, especially with her statement about how she wanted Subaru to kill her. That made him adamant that she couldn't be dead, leading to a visible panic at just the thought of it. Her words and his promise forced him to reject any possibility that Satella could be dead. That's when Al would interject, saying that it could be other witches, eventually leading to his subtle statement about Tifon. It was a name he didn't expect to hear coming from him, but one he hoped to inquire about if he ever got the opportunity. Given how cryptic he was when he said it, though, it was another instance where Subaru believed Al knew more than he was letting on. So he was very curious to know if the youthful girl he met was the same one Al was deep in thought about. If it was, then
I guess he probably got his helmet on for different reasons. But like, if I'm walking around with somebody, all this shit, we fight for our lives, all this shit, and bro, the only one with a helmet on and never take it off. Like I said, I know he got his reasons, but it's like, I'm always gonna look at you different. Like, who are you really, bruh? Like, come on, bruh. But I guess it's Priscilla Guard, so. But still.
The rest of the meeting went pretty much the same, aside from a minor scene with Anastasia taking a hard stance against terrorism. Knowing the witch cult would just kill them should they give in to their demands, she was pretty adamant about not negotiating with them at all. It made it so the only two options were to fight or flee. It was then that Garfiel would arrive with Mimi, leading to the flashback explaining how it all happened. A tragic turn of events starting of course with Capella. So, as she introduced both herself and her vivid disdain for humans, the unsettling nature of it all caused Mimi's smile to disappear. It made her carry an expression Garfiel knew didn't belong on her face, and for some reason that made him very uncomfortable. This was of course signed to regroup with Subaru and Amelia, but not before first encountering Liara. What happened next was a deep internal conflict between what he needed to do and what he wanted to do. You see, he was caught between fulfilling his duty to the Subaru and Amelia camp or helping his mother and the siblings he just recently discovered. It was a decision that brought into question who he was and everything he valued in life. Like, if he wasn't with Subaru and Amelia, then what use was he to them? At the same time, his two siblings were still technically his family, so it wouldn't be right to turn his back on them either. So, what had finally pushed Garfield over the edge was Liara's pitiful attempt to convince him not to help. After seeing just how hesitant Garfield was, she quickly understood it wasn't right for her to ask him this. It was a reaction that reminded Garfield of the day she left him. Just like how she did back then, she was clearly trying not to saddle others with duties they weren't obligated to take on. A heartfelt consideration that immediately made Garfield's choice obvious. Of course, Garfield knew he couldn't saddle Mimi with those obligations either, but as soon as he told her not to tag along, Mimi quickly made it clear that she was gonna help too. Both were decisions Liara simply couldn't understand right now. Given how to her he was just a stranger, it didn't make sense why he would go
That's what I'm saying. Like, only reason ReZero does some crazy things with the story and pulls it off the other shows just doesn't. It's that simple,
That was all he said before jumping away to fulfill his promise. In the end, Garfield knew putting off his duties was reckless, but what he found while doing so was that following his heart was easiest. Rather than wrestle with this incredibly tough decision now, he decided to instead focus on what was in front of him, then think through what had happened later. It was the way of fighting the Amelia faction had taught him. Why choose one when you can just take everything?
Yes, sir. Now, hey, Subaru been living by that, bro.
Their lingering scent revealed they had gone to the songstress. This meant they were likely in a nearby shelter.
Scene they put in there. I ain't gonna say nothing, but that's crazy.
They first needed to pass City Hall, the location of Liara's husband and the center of Lust's operations. This presented Garfield with yet another tough decision, since he could either ignore the man who stole his mother and go find his siblings, or try and save him and maintain his mother's newfound happy lifestyle. He was, after all, the one who saved her life. So, though Garfield wasn't connected to him by blood, he understood the impact of losing Gallic wasn't something he could just overlook. As someone who knew all too well himself, a blank space in the family was one that could never be filled. So Garfield, being Garfield, decided right there that going for the source of the commotion was best. If he could beat Capella right now, then everything should resolve itself faster.
That wasn't happening
like that, buddy. It was logic that
buddy.
Made complete sense to Mimi, but at the same time had her intuition ringing all sorts of alarm bells.
Yeah, it wasn't happening like that.
He needed to be careful too, but based on what he knew about witches from his time in Sanctuary, when it came to strength, he wasn't worried at all. Yes, he understood they had quite a bit of power, but from what he could tell about the one in Sanctuary, he honestly felt that she would never beat him in a contest of strength. It was a mindset that gave him confidence in his ability to fight Lust. So, after equipping his shields and gearing up, that's when him and Mimi would finally approach City Hall.
Like, look at that shit, bruh.
His plan was to overwhelm the enemy with speed and violence. He figured that this
multi-arm, bro. It looked like 4 arms, but he just
about
blew.
Subaru's encounter with the witch cult in the past, the Archbishop's disciples weren't really anything to worry about. Yes, there were quite a few of them, but individually, each weren't very strong at all. They were a problem he figured he could just handle on the fly.
Bo had to run to the commanders.
Though, was a pair with an aura so incredibly hostile that just being in their presence was enough to understand
Bo ran into the top goons
who've stepped beyond the realm
and
of
I ain't talking about. Never mind.
To compare them to an opponent we would understand ourselves.
Crazy.
Each was equal to.
Also, thank you for people that commented on the last video. Shout out to y'all.
They were enough of a threat to know facing them unprepared would be suicide. This was a fact Garfield
you could tell they was different.
But getting himself to accept it was a completely different story.
Yeah, he was still trying to fight the truth.
To him, they were nothing but a wall he needed to challenge and overcome.
I like the mentality, bro, but I'm happy
he had pride
common sense.
To turn tail and run after just losing in strength to Reinhardt, well, that was simply unacceptable to him.
To just leave it alone eventually, right?
Similar, but to highlight some of Garfield's thoughts throughout, he was genuinely shocked by how light the lady was. When his foot made contact and pushed her away, he was thrown back by just how light she felt. It was here that Garf's greediness would proceed to get the best of him, since where he thought he could at least take out one, instead turned into him getting jumped by both. He was bombarded by an onslaught of perfectly refined swordsmanship from the woman and crude heavy blows from the giant. One flowed like water through a river, while the other destroyed like a storm ravaging everything. It was a mind-numbing beatdown that Garfield could barely keep
The way
up
he
with.
words things is kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie.
Able to avoid
If I just ever
death
start smiling, laughing, that's
instinct
why.
alone helped him to parry the hit that would have been fatal.
And they was moving, they was moving real shiesty though, gang. I ain't gonna lie, they was going crazy in that episode, bro. I'm talking about, bro. I ain't gonna lie, I see bro moving like that with 4 blades and 4 arms, nigga. I've seen some crazy stuff in this show. We gonna keep seeing crazy things, but multi-armed goons moving like that, I don't know, bro. He might be one of the few, if not the only one
that love for
I've seen so far.
Came from the fact
maybe it's capped, though. It's been some years.
Or rather, will kill her. Both didn't really make much
sense. Let me go back to this point, because this scene right here threw me off, because when he did get her shit through the way, that shit was odd.
Helped him to parry the hits that would have been fatal. Everything else he just took head on. Now, something that really stood out to me after this was Elsa's line, which translated differently in the novel. Rather than her saying she's gonna kill him, that love for Garfield instead came from the fact he killed her. Or rather, will kill her. Both didn't really make much sense to me, but what they represent is the invitation of death. Either way, the battle would continue with Mimi having to save Garfield, eventually resulting in Mimi's injury. They could have gotten away had Garfield stuck to the plan, but because he was so caught up in trying to be the strongest, he would now have to face the direct consequences of his actions, the near death of the person who helped him cry. So, the moment Garfield realized that she was injured, he quickly found somewhere safe, then set her down so he could try and heal her himself. This was something he'd spent the last year learning, since if anything happened to those from Sanctuary, he wanted more than anything to be able to help them.
It was GARFIEL, for this reason, bro. I mean, he's young, he's still learning
healing magic, and this moment right here was about to prove his efforts. It was the exact situation that he'd been preparing for. When the wound he was treating didn't end up closing, though, despair and desperation overwhelmed him.
Such a fire-ass fucking panel. All that time he'd spent
learning how to treat wounds just like this was completely useless in the moment it mattered most.
But look, even though it's useless now, you know it's gonna come back up in the future, where he keep trying to actually be able to use it, even though he wasn't able to use it here. Because I ain't gonna lie, I did fucking forget. When he put up to the room with her in the hand, you know, she was still messed up. But I think she cool now anyways, you know what I'm saying, in the show. But like, that's what I was saying, is like, you know, he's so young, and it's like, you got all this power. It's like, he put in that position, but it's like, bro, it's kind of like, you gotta learn the hard way, you know what I'm saying? Like, like he said, he had 2 options, and why did he choose the fight? Because he wanted to prove that he was the strongest, and whatever other like mental reasons he had. And that's what I love about ReZero, because it plays on those type of mental characteristics in the character. Like Subaru, for example, he might be put in a situation to make, and he had to make like 3 important decisions, and he'll know like the outcomes, and it'll show you how like he'll be like, no, bro, I gotta do it like this because I follow my heart. He'll have his own reason, you know. He have his little speech and do his thing, but it's like, I love that in these characters, because like it's so real, you know what I'm saying? That's very relatable. Like, you know, you make decisions based off where you at, and it's like, this is a growth point for Garfield, because like, you don't want to see nobody else get hurt, especially because of your ego or pride.
This show,
despite how strong you are,
was instead turned into yet another failure. So, as he panicked,
all that power, but it come with responsibility.
Garfield didn't even recognize the
that shit's so tough. I love ReZero for this.
It was so frail and weak that it couldn't be
UNCUT content, bro.
This was no time to wallow in his own despair, though, since what mattered now was saving her. If it meant giving his life in exchange for hers, that was something Garfield was ready to do in an instant. He kept calling for a miracle as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop again, looking for anything or anyone that could help him. With not a soul in sight, though, the only thing Garfield could do now was rely on his senses. It was a last-ditch effort which would eventually lead him to the person he was looking for, the man that to him completely symbolized miracles. He was the personification of hope in the most dire of situations.
We just talking about you, big bro.
So, if anyone was going to be able to save Mimi, the general in front of him was the person to do it. Now, the next part pretty much segues into the operation to retake City Hall, so I think right here is a good place to stop. You can expect that video in a few days or so, or you can...
Hey, bro, you feel me, though? Hey, shout out to AniNews once again. Just let me know, bro. Just let me know. Let's let me know. Oh, I like this. But yeah, bro, let me know, y'all. Let me know, man. Like I said, I'm trying to learn how to get more in tune with these kind of videos and getting back. This kind of new to me. I'm still making sure I'm still growing as a content creator too. My channel's growing. I'm trying to get my channel to a certain place. So let me know what y'all want to see. If y'all want more of this, smash the like button. I love ReZero, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I'm gonna have to do something with the season 1, and like once I get caught up on season 3, I'm gonna have to do something with the original seasons that I didn't put on YouTube, but that I watched on my own, because it's like, this is so beautiful, bro. Like this really why I started wanting to do anime. This really why I want to start doing anime reactions. Like when I first switched over from gaming, was because like there's so many moments in anime where I have a deep thought or a feeling or connection, and it's like, yo bro, I want to like experience that moment with my supporters or with people who have it on video and shit, because it just be the moments. But it's like it takes sometimes like things to happen for you to for me to get back to that point, to like, you know what I'm saying, to get here, you know what I'm saying. So ReZero definitely kind of like is one of them shows, bro. ReZero is definitely one of them shows that give me the moments like, yo, this shit hit different. It hit you, and it hit you emotionally, mentally, had you thinking. Like, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Shout out to ReZero, shout out Subaru, bro, and shout out GARFIEL, bro. This is really mainly GARFIEL's episode for real. And like, bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. He had a good like key moment in here. And it's like, bro, I love the growth in his character. He's still growing, bro. He's gonna continue to keep growing. So we're gonna see how that go, bro. But if y'all want more, like I said, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. We're gonna wait 4K subscribers. And I'll see y'all next one, man. Peace.